It was the first Monday in May when everything changed. I remember because I had just finished wiping the dust off the last windowsill in my apartment, set down the rag, and finally let myself breathe. My name's Brandon, I'm 26, and for the first time in my life, I had something that was mine. Not rented with 3 roommates, not crashing at my cousin's place while trying to make ends meet. My apartment, my name on the lease, my blood, sweat, and a whole lot of late-night YouTube tutorials in the fresh white paint on the walls. And I wasn't even trying to be fancy. I just wanted something clean, something mine. I had spent the last 4 months pulling double shifts, working weekends, skipping dinners, and pretty much ghosting my social life just to be able to close on this one-bedroom place a few miles outside the city. It was small, older, and needed work, but it was quiet. And it was mine. Did I mention that already? I probably did. Because you don't forget the first time you put your hand on your own doorknob, turn the key, and know there's no one on the other side but you. But let me back up. You need to understand the family dynamic first, otherwise what happened won't make sense. Or maybe it'll make too much sense. I grew up in a house where the loudest person got their way. My dad wasn't in the picture. He left when I was in middle school and barely looked back. So it was just me, my older sister Emily, and our mom, who somehow decided Emily was the second coming of Cinderella, except instead of doing chores, Emily got excuses. Always. Every bad grade, every tantrum, every breakup. She's sensitive, Mom would whisper. She's going through a phase. For 15 years straight. Emily was 5 years older than me and had the confidence of someone who never got told no. I used to think she was cool when I was a kid. She wore makeup and always smelled like vanilla perfume and blasted music in her car like she was in a movie. But once I hit high school, something shifted. She started talking to me like I was her annoying little servant. Bran, grab me a soda. Bran, do the dishes, or I'll tell Mom you scratched her car. Bran, don't be such a weirdo. When I told my mom, she'd say the same thing every time. Just let her be. She's under a lot of pressure. I never figured out what the pressure was, exactly. She dropped out of college halfway through her first semester, spent a few years hopping from one temp job to another, then married a guy named Rick who wore sunglasses indoors and thought sarcasm was a personality. Meanwhile, I was the one who stayed quiet. I did well in school, got into a decent community college, and took night classes while working full-time at a logistics warehouse. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid, and over time I moved up from unloading trucks to team lead. Nobody gave me anything. I clawed for every promotion, every dollar, every inch of progress. I was used to hearing no and turning it into watch me. That's probably why Emily hated it when I bought the apartment. I wasn't loud about it. I didn't throw a party or post it all over social media, but I did bring it up over dinner at Mom's one Sunday. She was microwaving something while Emily scrolled on her phone, and I casually said, I close on my place this Friday. Finally, Emily didn't even look up. Didn't think you could afford anything with those wages. I didn't reply. I just smiled. Mom, to her credit, said, That's wonderful, Brandon. I'm so proud of you. But her eyes flicked toward Emily like she was worried how she'd take it. Emily let out this half laugh, half snort, and said, Well, I hope you like plumbing problems and loud neighbors. You know how those starter places are. That was her way. Anything good happening to someone else was an attack on her. And when things got worse with Rick, when the fights became louder, and then suddenly stopped because Rick was gone, Emily's bitterness grew teeth. She moved back in with Mom for a few weeks, which everyone knew would be months. She took over the living room, spread her stuff across the floor like she owned the place, and started making these pointed comments about how some people didn't understand how hard life could get. I stayed out of it. I had my place to focus on. I spent weekends sanding the floors, painting cabinets, installing new light fixtures that didn't flicker like horror movie props. I even learned how to tile my own bathroom. By the end of April, I was done. It looked perfect. Maybe not by magazine standards, but to me, perfect. And then came that Monday. It was one of those weirdly hot days in early May. I had just finished a shift, my shirt stuck to my back, and all I could think about was taking a long shower and sitting on the balcony with a glass of iced tea. I walked up to the door, stuck my key in the lock, and it didn't turn. I blinked. Tried again. Maybe I was holding it wrong, or tired. I checked the key. My key. I turned it again. Nothing. My heart did this little tap dance against my ribs. Maybe the lock was jammed. Maybe someone messed with it. I jiggled the key, then pressed my ear against the door like some kind of detective, and that's when I heard it. A voice. A woman's voice. Familiar. Laughing. I froze, then knocked. The laughter stopped. A few seconds later, the door opened a crack, just a few inches, and standing there, in one of my t-shirts, was Emily. She looked like she'd just woken up from a nap. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, and she was holding a bowl of cereal. My cereal. "What are you doing here?" she asked, like I was the intruder. I stared at her. What are you doing here? Why doesn't my key work?" "Oh," she said casually, stepping back. "Mom had the locks changed. We moved in last week." "We?" My voice sounded thin. "Me and Jamie," she said, waving vaguely toward the bedroom. "My son? You know, the one you barely see? It's been a hard time for him, Brandon." "Emily, this is my apartment." She gave me this look, like I'd just told her the earth was flat. "You're young. You'll bounce back. Jamie needs stability right now." I didn't even register half of what she said. My eyes were scanning the room. My rug. My coffee table. My books stacked on the shelves. It was all still there, except now with toy cars scattered across the floor, dirty bowls in the sink, laundry draped over the couch. I think I stopped breathing. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I didn't even step inside. I turned, walked back down the stairs, got in my car, and sat in silence for a good 10 minutes, just gripping the steering wheel. My chest felt like it was caving in, like the air had been sucked out of the world. Then I pulled out my phone and called my mom. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, sweetie. Why is Emily in my apartment?" She sighed. Not guilty. Not panicked. Just tired. "Brandon, please don't make a scene. Emily's going through a really difficult time. You gave her my apartment? You're young. You'll find something else. It's just temporary, until she gets back on her feet. Jamie needs a stable home. And you? Well, you're always working anyway." I felt something snap. Not loud, not explosive, just a quiet crack. I said, "Okay," and hung up. Then I drove straight to the police station. Not to start a fight, not to scream, but with my lease in hand. And that's when the real war began. I walked into that police station like I was still in a dream. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe a pat on the back, maybe some officer to say, "Oh wow, let's go kick her out right now." But what I got was paperwork. Protocol. Cautious nods and hesitant tones. I sat in the waiting area, lease in one hand, ID in the other, trying to stay calm while my brain screamed in circles. The officer at the front desk, Officer Marks, I think his name was, asked me to explain everything. I did. Slowly. Carefully. No anger in my voice. Just the facts. I had signed a lease 3 months ago. I had paid for every bit of that apartment myself. I had keys, furniture, receipts. And now I was locked out, with someone else living there. Someone who hadn't paid a cent and had no legal right to be there. He looked through the lease, asked for my landlord's contact info, then gave me a look that felt somewhere between sympathetic and exhausted. "Well," he said, "this isn't a criminal matter. Yet. If she broke in or changed the locks without permission, we might be looking at trespassing. But since you gave her a key—" "I didn't," I interrupted. "I never gave her a key. I gave one spare to my mom for emergencies. That's it." He raised his eyebrows, slowly nodding. "All right, that changes things. Your mom gave access to someone else. That's unauthorized use, maybe even unlawful entry. But look, Brandon, this kind of situation can get messy. Family disputes don't always get solved through us. You'll want to start with a formal report, then go through your landlord. They'll likely need to file an eviction notice if she won't leave willingly." I wanted to laugh, or cry, or scream into a pillow. Instead, I just asked for the forms and started filling them out with a numb hand. My phone buzzed with a text halfway through. I ignored it. It was from my mom. "Please don't make this worse, Brandon. She needs this more than you right now." That line stuck with me the rest of the night. I crashed at a friend's place after that. Darren, a guy I used to work with who had a couch and no questions. He offered me a beer and a pillow. I took both. Didn't sleep. Just stared at the ceiling, thinking about how fast everything had unraveled. The next morning, I called my landlord, Mr. Rios. He was as shocked as I was. "She's what?" he said, voice going sharp. "You mean someone changed the locks? That's illegal, Brandon. I never authorized that." I didn't either. I wasn't even told. My mom just gave her access. There was a pause. "She's not on the lease. I can start the eviction process, but that'll take time." Court notice, sheriff posting, minimum 30 days unless she leaves voluntarily. 30 days. 30 days of her living in my home, touching my things, eating my food, sleeping in my bed, my stomach twisted. Mr. Rios promised to come by and verify everything in person, but until then, I was stuck in limbo. My apartment wasn't mine anymore, not in practice. I called my mom again that afternoon. She picked up, soft and slow, like she'd been waiting for it. "Hi, honey. I want you to tell me exactly what happened." She sighed. "Brandon, I know you're upset, but try to understand." Emily showed up crying, with Jamie in her arms. She said Rick kicked her out, that she had nowhere to go, and I couldn't stand to see my grandson suffer. "You're doing fine, sweetie. You're strong. You have a good job. And that means you can just give away my apartment? You weren't even there half the time. You're always working or sleeping at friends' places. I didn't think it would be a big deal for a few weeks." I gripped the phone tighter. "You didn't think to ask me? She's your sister, Brandon. Family helps family. And she needs this more than you." There it was again. That phrase. She needs this more than you. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "You're right." Just a quiet, patronizing dismissal. "I'm coming by tomorrow," I said. "Get her out. You're not thinking clearly. Don't do something you'll regret." No apology. No accountability. Just another excuse. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. The next day, I pulled into the driveway with Mr. Rios right behind me. He wanted to witness everything himself. We knocked. No answer. Knocked again. Nothing. Finally, he used the master key he still had. But it didn't work. The locks had been fully changed. Mr. Rios stepped back, rubbing his forehead. Unbelievable. We had no choice but to post a notice on the door, an official warning that the tenant of record, me, had reported unauthorized occupancy and that legal eviction proceedings had begun. I took a picture of the notice and sent it to both Emily and my mom. Neither replied. But later that night, I saw the paper crumpled in a trash can photo posted on Emily's private Facebook story, one I wasn't supposed to see. The caption? "He thinks this little note scares me. Try harder, baby brother." I stared at that screen for a long time. That was when something inside me shifted. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was something colder, deeper. A few days passed with radio silence. I didn't hear from either of them. Mr. Rios filed the eviction paperwork, and I waited. I floated between friends' places and spent every spare moment either at work or researching tenants' rights, lease protections, and how long I might have to wait for this circus to end. Then came the kicker. I got a notification from my bank. A $120 charge at a home decor store I'd used before, followed by another $200 at a furniture outlet, then groceries, then a delivery service, all charged to my card. I froze, dug deeper, realized I'd never canceled the spare card I had left in a drawer at the apartment, the one I hadn't used in months. Emily had found it. I called the bank, froze the account, and disputed every charge. Then I called my mom. Again. This time, I didn't even say hello. "She's using my card now." A pause. Then, "I'm sure it's just for necessities." She wouldn't do that maliciously. She bought a standing mirror and a wine rack. Silence. "I'm reporting this," I said. "To the police." "You'd send your own sister to jail?" "She's not acting like a sister." That night, I did report it. I showed them the bank statements, the Facebook story, the lease. Officer Marks took notes and promised to escalate it. They couldn't arrest her yet, but they added it to the case. It was starting to look a lot more like fraud. Still, nothing changed. Emily stayed. The eviction court date was weeks away. I was losing sleep, weight, and what little faith I had left in family. Then, about 2 weeks later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Hello. Is this Brandon Harper?" "Yeah. This is Ms. Kessler from the Family Department of Child Protective Services. We'd like to speak with you about a guardianship inquiry filed in your name for a minor, Jamie Harper." I nearly dropped the phone. "What?" "It says here you applied to assume guardianship of your nephew due to unsafe living conditions in the current home." I didn't file anything. A pause. Shuffling papers. Strange. The document has your name, your signature, even your ID, although it looks a bit off. They emailed it to me. I opened the file and saw my name signed at the bottom of a guardianship request. But the signature was wrong. My name was misspelled on one page. The photo ID was a cropped scan of an old employee badge I'd lost years ago. It was fake. Emily, or someone helping her, was trying to frame me. Whether it was to scare me off delay the eviction, or paint me as some villain I didn't know. But it was a line crossed so far it wasn't even visible anymore. I called my mom in a fury. She didn't answer, so I went to her house. She opened the door wearing an apron, as if this were just any other Thursday. "Brandon, please don't barge in." I held up my phone. She forged my signature on a guardianship request. She tried to make it look like I was trying to take her kid. Her face paled, but only for a second. Then it hardened. "I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation." "There isn't. And if you don't help me fix this, you're going down with her." Her lips tightened. She opened her mouth to speak, then stopped. Closed it. I waited. And then she said, in the coldest tone I've ever heard from her, "You always resented her. Don't pretend you didn't. Maybe she's not perfect, but at least she never abandoned her family." That was the last thing she said before shutting the door in my face. And that was the moment it all shattered. The loyalty, the guilt, the idea that maybe, just maybe, my mom still saw me as her son. She didn't. To her, I was disposable, replaceable, a stepping stone for the daughter who needed it more. And that's when I knew. I wasn't getting my home back by waiting. I had to take it back. But I wasn't going to scream or break windows or throw punches. I was going to do it by the book, by the system they thought I didn't understand. And by the time I was done, they'd wish they'd never touched a single thing that belonged to me. Especially the lease. Especially the card. Especially the name they tried to fake. But before that revenge could begin, before I even set my plan in motion, something happened that I didn't expect. Something that changed everything again. And not in a good way. For the first time in my adult life, I stopped showing up to work early. I still got there on time. I wasn't about to give Emily or my mom that satisfaction, but I stopped clocking in an hour ahead, stopped volunteering for double shifts. The fire I'd always had, the hustle, the drive, the constant push to get ahead, had sputtered out like someone poured cold water on it. And I couldn't fake it anymore. My manager noticed. So did my coworkers. But no one said anything. Not yet. I was sleeping on Darren's couch for the third week in a row by then. He never complained. He gave me space, kept things chill, and didn't ask questions I wasn't ready to answer. But I saw the look on his face when I forgot to take the trash out again. When I left my laundry in the washer too long. When I barely said a word during a whole dinner. I was unraveling. Quietly. Slowly. The eviction hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out, but every day dragged like molasses. Meanwhile, Emily was living it up in my apartment. Her Instagram had gone from quiet divorcee vibes to full-on influencer energy. Photos of her cozy new space, my apartment, Jamie eating cereal at my kitchen island, still my cereal, and a post that almost made me throw my phone across the room. Sometimes life surprises you with a fresh start. Thank you to everyone who supported me when I had nothing. I was blocked from viewing it, of course. But people talk. Screenshots get shared. My cousin sent it to me with a simple text. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The weight of everything pressed on me. The betrayal. The silence. The fact that my own mother hadn't even called to check if I was okay. Not once. Not after the fake guardianship filing. Not after the charges on my card. Not after she slammed the door in my face. I started having dreams about keys. I'd be standing at a door, sometimes my apartment, sometimes my childhood home, and no matter how many keys I tried, none of them worked. The locks would melt, twist, or vanish entirely, and I'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, on a couch that wasn't mine. That was rock bottom. Not dramatic, not loud, just a quiet, steady erosion of everything I'd built. And then one morning, something small shifted. It was Darren. He was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping coffee, flipping through a tablet, and he glanced up at me. "You still got that drill?" I blinked. "What?" "The power drill. You let me borrow it when I moved in. Still works like a beast." "Yeah." "What?" He nodded toward the tablet. "My landlord's letting me redo the shelves in the laundry room. Said I could put in some custom ones if I supply the labor." "You in?" I didn't answer right away, but something about the way he said it, like it was normal, like I wasn't a ghost. "Sure," I said. "Why not?" It took us all of an hour. Basic install, but it felt good to do something. To hold tools again. To measure and cut and sand. My hands remembered the rhythm even if my heart was still playing catch-up. The next weekend, we tackled his bedroom closet. Then his kitchen backsplash. Darren kept finding excuses to bring me into projects, and I didn't fight it. I didn't talk much, but I showed up. I worked. And slowly, something started to come back. Darren noticed. One night over takeout, he said, "You ever think about doing this full-time?" "What?" "Handyman stuff. Repairs. Installations. You're good at it, man." I shook my head. "Nah, that's just side stuff." "Why not? You got a knack. You're detail-oriented. You don't cut corners. Half the guys on Craigslist don't even bring a level. You could charge double and still get booked." I didn't say anything. But that night, I pulled out my laptop and started searching. Handyman licensing. Small business registration. Website templates. I didn't sleep much, but for the first time in weeks, it wasn't from anxiety. It was hope. Over the next few days, I juggled work with research. Started making lists. Tools I already had. Tools I needed. Services I could offer. Price ranges. Insurance. Tax stuff. The logistics were dizzying, but I didn't care. Because for the first time in weeks, I was building something. A few days later, Darren let me tag along on a job he was doing for a coworker, mounting a TV and fixing a broken cabinet. I did most of the work. Darren watched, cracked jokes, offered beer after. The coworker tipped us both. "You're a pro," he said. "You do this full-time?" I didn't lie. Not yet. That night, I bought a domain name, harperfixit.com. Simple, clean, professional. I made a basic logo, set up an email address, and started working on a one-page site. Nothing fancy, just enough to look legit. I signed up for a few gig apps, threw my profile on TaskMatch, and waited. 2 days later, I got my first booking. Some woman needed her garage shelving reinforced. I showed up early, tools in hand, and did the job in an hour. She tipped me $40 on top of my rate and left a 5-star review. I stared at that review like it was a trophy. Not because of the money, though, yeah, that helped, but because it was validation. Proof that I was still me, even after everything. That I could still provide value. Still build. Word spread slowly. A few more jobs came in. I updated my site. Got business cards printed. Harper Fixit became more than just a name. It became my way out. And through it all, I kept things quiet. No posts. No texts to my mom. No comments on Emily's nonsense. I didn't try to justify myself to the family group chat that had gone oddly silent since everything happened. Let them think I was broken. Let them think I was licking my wounds in some basement. I was building, planning, and I wasn't just getting my apartment back anymore. I was getting my life back. But the next twist? That came out of nowhere. It was a Saturday afternoon when I got a message on the Harper Fixit contact form. The name listed? Rick. Yeah, that Rick. Emily's ex. The subject line just said, "Job inquiry. Need help with garage conversion." I stared at the message for a full minute. Then I read it again. "Hey, not sure if this is the right Brandon, but if it is, I need some work done. Converting my garage into a home office. Saw your site through a neighborhood group. Let me know if you're available. Also, sorry about everything. I heard what happened. I didn't even know how to process it. Why was he reaching out? And what did he know?" I didn't reply right away. I thought about it for a whole day. Then I typed a response. "Hey, Rick. Yeah, it's me. Let's talk." We scheduled a call. 5 minutes in, I realized he wasn't the same guy Emily had painted him to be. "I'm not here to pick sides," he said. "But I thought you should know. Emily's version of things isn't exactly the truth." "No kidding." He hesitated, then added, "She told her new boyfriend that you kicked her out of your own apartment to punish her. Said you were jealous of her being a single mom and wanted to prove a point." I laughed. A short, humorless bark. I didn't even know she had a boyfriend. "Yeah, they met last month. He doesn't know the half of it." That stuck with me. Emily was spinning stories, crafting a whole new narrative about what happened, about me, while I was quietly picking up the broken pieces. And that's when I knew. I couldn't just sit back and wait for the eviction hearing. I needed leverage. I needed proof. So I started collecting. Screenshots of Emily's posts. Bank records showing the charges on my card. Emails with timestamps. Photos of the fake guardianship documents. Even Rick offered to write a statement confirming that Emily had bragged about squatting in my place. I saved it all. Categorized everything in folders. Printed copies. Backed it up twice. Because I wasn't just preparing for eviction court anymore. I was preparing for war. But just when I thought I had everything under control, just when I thought I was done falling, I got a call from Mr. Rios. "Brandon," he said, voice grim, "you need to come to the apartment. Now." My stomach sank. "What happened?" "She's not here. But there's something you need to see." I dropped everything and drove over. When I got there, the door was open. The lock was busted. Mr. Rios stood just inside the living room, his face unreadable. I stepped past him and froze. The place was trashed. Furniture overturned. Walls scuffed. Cabinets left open. Broken glass in the kitchen. My TV gone. So was the microwave. And the shelves I installed in the hallway. She hadn't just moved out. She'd cleared the place. And left me with the wreckage. Mr. Rios handed me a folded note he'd found taped to the fridge. In sloppy handwriting, it read, "Thanks for the free ride. Good luck fixing this dump. Maybe next time, don't be such a selfish little snake." And below that, a smudged smiley face. For a long time, I just stood there, staring at the empty space where my couch used to be. The apartment I'd bled for, worked for, lived for, gone. But weirdly, I didn't feel broken. Not anymore. Because what Emily didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd already taken photos of everything before. That I had receipts, witnesses, a timeline. She'd think she won, that she'd taken the last word. But she hadn't seen the new Brandon, the one who knew how to rebuild, the one who was going to make every single one of them pay, legally, carefully, and with a smile. Because the fall was over. And the rise? It had just begun. It's funny how losing everything can make you see clearly. I stood in the center of my trashed apartment, floor littered with glass shards, drywall dented like someone had taken a bat to it, and felt calm. Not numb, not broken, just still, like the kind of silence you hear right before a storm starts rolling in. The calm before. Mr. Rios was pacing by the door, muttering about insurance and damages, but I tuned him out. My eyes traced every missing piece. The stolen microwave, the gutted TV stand, the decorative light fixtures I'd installed myself, gone. The shelves I'd measured and leveled to perfection, ripped from the walls, screws still embedded in the paint. It wasn't vandalism. It was intentional. Emily hadn't just moved out. She'd emptied the place like it was a hotel room she never planned to pay for. And then she left that note. "Thanks for the free ride. Good luck fixing this dump." She thought that was the final move. She thought she'd won. But all she'd done was hand me exactly what I needed. Because now I didn't just have eviction paperwork. I had evidence of theft, destruction of property, and malicious intent. I had photos of the apartment before and after. I had bank records. I had the fake guardianship filing she tried to sneak under my name. I had Rick, her ex-husband, willing to testify. And more than anything, I had no fear left. No ties. No illusions. No mercy. Once Mr. Rios filed the police report for damages and left to contact his insurance company, I stayed behind. I sat on the floor, bare, cold, and stained with something sticky I didn't want to identify, and started making lists. The kind of lists you only make when you're past the point of heartbreak. Step by step. Methodical. 1. Police report. Already filed by Mr. Rios. I'd add to it with the missing items list, photos, and any receipts I could dig up. My bank statements would show some of the stolen electronics had been charged to my card. 2. Legal prep. The eviction hearing was still on the books, but now I had grounds for civil damages and possible criminal charges. I needed a lawyer. Not a flashy one. Just someone sharp, quiet, and thorough. 3. Financial lockdown. All my cards had been changed, my credit monitored. But I ordered a new freeze on any line of credit and flagged my name with the 3 major bureaus just in case Emily tried something again. 4. The guardianship forgery. That needed to be escalated. I'd already filed the report with CPS and provided a copy to the police. Now it was time to push. Hard. 5. Character witnesses. Rick. Darren. Even a few co-workers who knew the timeline. I started reaching out. Not to gossip, not to vent. Just to ask for formal statements. Every one of them agreed without hesitation. By the end of the night, I had 5 folders, physical and digital, labeled lease and property, fraud and identity theft, financial theft, witness statements, timeline and evidence. I was building a case, not just for court, but for everything. Because here's the thing about people like Emily, and, unfortunately, people like my mother too. They rely on you staying quiet. They feed on guilt, on family ties, on the idea that you won't dare fight back. But I'd already fought my way out of the dirt to buy that apartment. Worked double shifts. Learned how to tile a bathroom from scratch. I'd clawed every inch of success with no help. And now, I had nothing left to lose. So I started making calls. The first was to Rick. "I need that statement," I said. "The one you offered. In writing." He didn't hesitate. "You got it. 2 days later, I had a signed, notarized letter describing everything Emily had told him, how she admitted to changing the locks, laughed about taking over the place, and called me too weak to do anything about it. Rick even offered screenshots of texts she'd sent him during the move, bragging about living rent-free and showing Brandon how things work in the real world. That went into folder number 4. Next, I contacted CPS again and pushed the forgery issue. I told them I had proof the document submitted was not only falsified, but part of a larger harassment pattern. I was calm, respectful, but firm. And that's when I got a name, Detective Owens. He was being assigned to the forgery case. I emailed him the entire folder, every file, every photo, every discrepancy in the forged form. Within a day, he replied, short and simple, received. This is being escalated for formal review. We'll update you shortly. Momentum. I could feel it building. Meanwhile, Mr. Rios hired a contractor to assess the damage. He brought me along to walk through the apartment and confirm what had been taken or destroyed. The contractor whistled under his breath. She ripped out the light sockets too? Man, that's spite. That's not even theft. That's just mean. We both laughed, but mine was hollow. Still, I took pictures, measured what needed repair, saved every invoice the contractor sent Mr. Rios. I offered to help fix it myself. Rios declined. You've done enough. Focus on the case. I'll handle the apartment. The next piece of the setup was harder. I had to talk to my mom. Not because I wanted closure. I didn't. I just needed to hear what she knew. And more importantly, what she didn't. I showed up at her house unannounced. She opened the door wearing a knitted shawl and holding a half-eaten apple. She blinked. Brandon, I'm not here to fight, I said. I just want clarity. She let me in with a sigh. The house smelled like lavender and lemon polish. Familiar, in a painful way. I sat on the couch. She stood by the doorway like a chaperone. I need to know, I said. Did you help her forge those documents? Her face shifted. Not shocked, but hurt. Performatively hurt. I didn't forge anything, she said quietly. She showed me a paper and said it was part of custody arrangements. I didn't ask questions. I stared at her. Did you read it? No. Did you see my signature? I don't remember. I believed her, but I didn't forgive her. Emily's in trouble, I said. This won't end well for her. She's your sister, Brandon. She's a criminal, Mom. She looked down, and I realized she already knew. Not just about the document. About everything. The fake charges. The vandalism. The manipulation. She had to know. She just didn't want to face it. I stood. I won't let her do this again. Not to me. Not to anyone. Mom said nothing. She didn't follow me to the door. And that silence told me more than words ever could. She'd chosen her side, which made mine easier to choose. I cut all contact after that. Changed my number. Blocked both of them on everything. Darren helped me set up call filters so their names would never show up again. And I went back to work. Not at the warehouse. That chapter was done. I was Harper Fix-It now. Full-time. I'd built up enough momentum, enough word-of-mouth jobs, repeat clients, and glowing reviews that I could finally let go of the 9-to-5 grind. I registered my business officially, paid the licensing fees, started offering package deals. I even invested in better gear, tools I dreamed of when I was broke, scouring clearance aisles. By the end of the month, I had 3 weeks' worth of appointments lined up. My own logo on a white van, branded polos, and a folding workbench with my name etched into the side. I was making more in a week than I used to in a month. But I didn't post about it. Didn't brag. Because this wasn't for Emily. This was for me. Still, part of me wanted her to know. To see what I'd built from the ashes she left behind. And I'd get that chance. Because then, out of nowhere, I got an email. From an address I didn't recognize. The subject line just read, "From Jamie, with help from my friend's mom." My heart stopped. I opened it. "Hi, Uncle Brandon. I don't know if you're mad at me too. Mom said you hate us now, but I don't believe that. I miss you. Can I see you sometime?" Attached was a drawing. Crayon on paper. A stick figure me with a big wrench in one hand and a smile. Standing next to a little kid holding a toolbox. It broke me. And it reminded me exactly why I had to finish this. Not just for justice, but to protect the next person Emily tried to manipulate, even if it was her own son. So I made my final list. 1. Deliver all evidence to Detective Owens and follow up weekly. 2. Confirm police report for damages with Mr. Rios and sign affidavit. 3. Finalize civil lawsuit paperwork with attorney. 4. Notify CPS of Jamie's letter without pushing contact. 5. Prepare public-facing post if needed. Something honest, calm, with facts. Because if Emily wanted to spin lies, fine. But I had the truth, and the law, and momentum. I was done playing defense. Now it was my move. The final move didn't come in a dramatic courtroom scene or some screaming confrontation in a parking lot. That would have been too easy, too loud. Emily always thrived on drama. Chaos was her currency. So I chose the one weapon she could never understand. Silence. Steady, strategic, legal silence. I waited for the hearing. The eviction case that had started everything was finally going to court, and despite everything Emily had done, she still showed up late. No lawyer. No apology. Just a cheap white blouse and that same smug smirk she'd worn the day she changed the locks to my apartment. She didn't even look at me when she walked in. Didn't glance at the folder I placed neatly on the desk in front of me, labeled in bold. Evidence of theft and fraud, Emily Harper. I had everything inside. Receipts for the missing electronics. Photos of the damage she caused. Screenshots of her social media posts bragging about living in my apartment rent-free. Rick's notarized statement. Police reports. The bank fraud paperwork. The guardianship forgery. The judge, a tired-looking woman in her 50s with no time for games, didn't need long. After barely 20 minutes, she ruled in my favor. Immediate eviction was granted, retroactively applied since Emily had already vacated. Mr. Rios was awarded damages for the destruction of the property. I was awarded restitution for theft and unauthorized credit card usage. Emily didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Her face did all the talking. And when the judge asked her if she had anything to add before closing, she finally opened her mouth. "He's blowing this out of proportion," she said. "It was just family helping family." The judge stared at her. "That's not what the evidence says, Miss Harper. This isn't a family matter anymore. It's a legal one." That was the first crack. But the real hit came a week later. Detective Owens called me with an update. The forgery of the guardianship request wasn't just a misdemeanor. It had crossed the line into criminal territory. Emily had submitted a falsified document to a government agency. Combined with the statement from CPS and the falsified ID she used, it was enough for the DA to press charges. Fraud, forgery, identity theft. A court date was set. A public defender was assigned to her, since she couldn't afford her own lawyer. And despite everything, she still tried to spin it like I was the one who betrayed her. I didn't respond to the texts. I didn't call her back when she left a voicemail saying, "This could ruin me, Brandon. Think about Jamie." Jamie. I had been thinking about Jamie. I didn't reply to him after that first message, not directly. But I did contact CPS again. Quietly, carefully. I told them I wasn't trying to seek custody. I just wanted to make sure Jamie was safe. I gave them everything I had. Her living conditions. Her instability. Her manipulations. I even forwarded the messages she'd sent about using Jamie to guilt me. They thanked me. Said they'd take it from there. A few weeks later, I heard through Rick that he'd filed for full custody. Apparently, CPS had reached out for a home check. That's when they discovered Emily had been leaving Jamie with friends for days at a time, bouncing between boyfriends' houses, and still trying to figure things out. She failed to appear at a scheduled follow-up. Then she failed another. That was it. Rick got temporary custody. Full legal custody was pending a hearing, but Jamie was already living with him. Emily's world? Crumbling. And she couldn't stop it. She tried to call me again, this time sobbing into the phone, her voice hoarse. "I messed up, okay? I didn't mean to go that far. I was desperate. Can't we fix this?" I didn't answer. I'd already blocked her number. It was Darren who finally said what I'd been thinking all along. "You didn't destroy her, man. She did that herself. All you did was stop her from doing it to you again." By then, Harper Fix It was booming. I had 3 guys working with me now, 2 part-time, 1 full-time. We were booked out for 3 months in advance. I had an LLC, a tax ID, and a logo on the side of my work van. I even got invited to speak at a local entrepreneurship event. Life wasn't perfect. There were still nights I'd stare at the ceiling wondering how I let it go so far. Still moments when I'd remember a birthday or a holiday and feel the hollow space where family used to be. But I didn't miss them. I missed the idea of them. That's not the same thing. The last piece fell into place 6 months after the eviction. I got a letter from the court. Emily pled guilty to reduced charges under a deal. She'd avoid jail time, but she'd have a record. A hefty fine, mandatory counseling, community service, probation. It wasn't everything I wanted, but it was enough. And when I walked back into that apartment, freshly repainted, the smell of sawdust and lemon oil in the air, I stood in the middle of the living room, closed my eyes, and breathed in. It was quiet. It was clean. It was mine again. No noise. No lies. Just me. I'd started from nothing, lost everything, and built it all again. But this time, stronger, smarter, and with the kind of peace no one could take away. Not Emily. Not even my mom. Because the truth is, revenge doesn't always have to be loud. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is just rebuilding quietly and letting them watch. She stole my home, so I built a life she could never break into.